Okay. Well, hopefully we are back up and running. Not sure what just happened. That was weird. So, well, if you guys are back and you can hear me, please let me know. All good now. Really? That's all it took? All right. Well, let's hope that you can hear the music. Let me play this real quick. Voice is good, Mark George says. What about the music? Were you able to hear the music? Survey says. Okay, so never again switch to a DSLR camera while you're doing this. That's the lesson that we learned from here. All right, well, anyway, let's get back to this mix breakdown. Okay, so let's go ahead and listen to the song all the way through. By the way, thank you guys so much for sticking it out with me. You guys rock. Anywhere else, I would have been crucified already. All right, so let's go ahead and listen to the song all the way through, and then I'll come back and we'll take questions. If you guys have any questions about the mixing, I'm mainly going to be breaking down the production elements and the arrangement, but if you have questions about mixing, please feel free to ask. So let's go ahead and give a listen.
It hurt to see you go, and I watched you slip away. It happened so slow, though there are things we can't explain. I know one who can heal all your pain. Don't try to pretend to be strong. Truth is, we both know you're just barely holding on. And don't give up though, 'cause you still have this hope. The hands that are holding you will never let you go. You'll be better off than you've ever been if you just come back home again. The life outside of him won't satisfy. The Father's waiting at the door, just as he always has before. I pray that you will make it back in time. There's not much time. Don't let this world take away everything that you believe, because you know better than anyone that Jesus is all he's all you need. You'd be better off than you've ever been if you just come back home again. Life outside of him won't satisfy. The Father's waiting at the door, just as he always has before. I pray that you will make it back in time, while there's still time. Standing there before the one who purchased us and set us free with the blood that fell from Calvary. Will we stand in silent fear of all, or to our knees in reverence fall before the Lion and the Lamb, the Son of God, the great I am? When he who sees into the heart cries, enter in or soon depart, where will we run to on that day when there's no time left to pray? outside of him won't satisfy. The Father's waiting at the door, just as he always has before. I pray that you will make it back in time. There's not much time. Oh, you know, you'd be better off.
Woo. All right. Every time I listen to that song, just knowing the state of mind that I was in when I wrote that, I'm not going to lie, it gets me a little teary-eyed. So, sort of the backstory of this song, which is another reason why I kind of wanted to do these, is I've written these songs a long time ago, and I've had a lot of people like, hey, what's the story on that song? And so this will be kind of like a video that I can point them back to. Keith Lane says it needs more cowbell. But this will be a story that I can kind of point them back to and show them like this is what it stemmed from. So just going to get really transparent, really personal right now, okay? So when I was growing up, I grew up in a home where predominantly everyone that was in the home was very wild. And what I mean by that is it was nothing for me to come home from school to step over the drunken bodies of individuals just to get to my room. By the time that I was 13 years old, I was heavily involved in a lot of stuff I shouldn't have been involved in. Let's just say that. By the time I was 15, I was a full-blown alcoholic. I was selling drugs. I was hardly ever home. I was going from house to house. I was just a vagabond, pretty much a drifter. And from the time I was 13 until the time I was 21, I am not proud of this, but I have done nearly every drug that you can think of, other than shooting up, which that was where I kind of drew the line. But during that time of me being out in the world and doing all this, I acquired a lot of street smarts. And I also acquired a lot of heartache and pain. It was at the time whenever I was 21 when my parents got into church. They started living for God, and there was a whole course of actions. I don't have time to go into all of it right here. I plan on sharing this with my Patreon members here soon, just so they can get to know me a little bit better. But basically, I came to a breaking point in my life, the bottom of the barrel. I went home, stumbled into the front door, crashed on the couch of my parents' house, which I hadn't been there in months, but I knew the door was always open. As I said, this time they were in church, they were living for God, they were doing the right thing with their lives, they really straightened up, cleaned up. There was no more drugs in the home. The whole atmosphere was different. And so I stayed there that night, and it was probably the course of the next 2 months. I stayed with them, and during that time, my dad was never really very pushy, but he said, would you come to church with me? And just out of common courtesy, I said, sure, I'll go to church. Long story short, I was set up. I thought I was going to go and hear the older gentleman that I was used to hearing as a boy whenever I was forced to go or made to go with my grandma or something like that. And there was a 23-year-old evangelist that was there that was preaching that day, and he went right down my alley, was talking about things that I knew that nobody knew anything about. And so at that very moment, I knew this is not just a man speaking. God is speaking through this man to try to reach me. At the end of the service, I made the commitment to Christ, submitted my life to him. I've never looked back since. And on that very day, on August 18th, on that very day, I went from smoking 2 packs of cigarettes a day and drinking alcohol every single day to nothing. I never touched another joint, never dropped another hit of acid, nothing. Cold turkey, everything in one day. Now, that was not me, because I couldn't do that on my own. That was God's power working in my life. So I got in church and I started living for God, and that's what's got me to this point, honestly. Otherwise, I would be dead or in jail. And at the time that I wrote this song, it was probably, I'd only been in church maybe 5-6 years, and my parents were still very strong in church. Something had happened, though. There was a nick in the armor, and the adversary had got to them and caused them to backslide. And they left the church, and they went right back to the same things that they were doing. My heart was broken into 1,000 pieces. Being the fact that my mother, I know how she is, she's always been very supportive of my music, and she knew what music meant to me, because when I was growing up, I'm sorry, I'm not going to get too emotional on you guys, but when I was growing up, music was the only thing that I had. It seemed like sometimes when friends would turn their back on me or rob from me or steal my girlfriend or whatever it was, I always had music to fall back on. It's what carried me through a lot of times. And so Mom was always very supportive of my music, and I knew that regardless of what state she was in, she would listen to my music. And so I wrote this song in the hopes that even in the state that they were in, that they would listen to this song, and that they would that somehow through this music that I could lead them back to the place that they needed to be. I wish I could tell you that it worked. Unfortunately, it didn't. They're closer now to coming back home than they ever would have been before, especially at the time that I wrote this song. This is 4 years later now. They're closer now than they've ever been, just simply due to the fact that they know that how they're living isn't right. And the fact that I'm still living for God and doing what I know is right has been a huge light to them to see that it can be done. And that's what this song was wrote about. Better Off is the title of it, because I wanted them to realize that you guys would be so much better off if you would just come back home again. And so this entire song is formulated around this premise of really driving that point home. The lyrics, everything about it. When we get into the lyrics side of it, the very first lines, I know it hurt to see you go. I watched you slip away. It seems so slow. There are things that we can't explain, but I know one who can heal all your pain. And just all of the lyrics, and if you'll notice too, there's points in this, and we'll get into this here in just a minute, where much like the last song, I love to build up to these crescendos and then drop out and then build back into a crescendo. That's just my style of music. But I implemented elements into this music that I've never implemented before. And I'm going to show you what I mean, because one of the things that I implemented into this song was a lot of sound effects that I'm not used to using. I know that you were probably able to hear that bell. Keith says, I don't think that is any reflection on your music or you. If I wrote a song that was anti-church, you'd never be swayed by it. That's correct. And so let's go ahead and start breaking down the elements of this mix. And so I can kind of compose myself here, get back to where we were at here. Got all sentimental on you guys there for a minute. Just to kind of let you know, though, take down the veneer. I'm a real person with real problems and a real past. But it's by the grace of God that I'm here today. So the song starts out yet again. Like I said, I like to build as we're going. And this is the part that is exciting to me. I love breaking these down and showing you the innards. And so it starts out with just simply some electric guitars. Thank you, Mark. You're awesome, man. It starts out with some electric guitars. When the vocals come in, then acoustic guitars start coming into the mix. So you automatically start seeing those building blocks sort of building up. And then the bass guitar is present with it always. The drums have a little bit of a shift as well. So let's play this first portion right before the vocals kick in, and then listen to right when the vocals kick in. You'll hear the other elements really start to kick in here. So very sparsely populated. And then
You know it hurt to see see you go.
Okay, so you started to hear other elements coming in, especially right there on the vocals. So it had sort of an intro, but not like a 1960s 5-minute long intro, but it had an intro. And then these guitars actually come in. I love being able to solo the different elements too and let you guys hear these. So check this out. Just really quick chords on the guitar. I love using these acoustic elements like this because it's just enough to give that song a little bit of almost like a breathing apparatus. It's crazy. Now, these were double-tracked acoustic guitars. I can honestly remember that I believe these were recorded with don't quote me on this, but I believe these were recorded with the Blue Spark microphone that I have. And then someone mentioned lead vocal 67. That 67 is actually not 67th take. It's the MXL V67G. So that's where the 67 is coming in there. I'm sure it was probably the 67th take, but anyway. But the 67 is for the microphone that I used. So it's the V67G. Love that microphone. Very cheap, very affordable. Okay, and then also you'll notice that on the lead vocals, other than just having a lead vocal there, we have this accentuation here, which I'll kind of show you what that sounds like with and without.
You know it hurt to see you go.
So that's just sort of the dry, well, not really dry, but sort of like the dry vocal, the main vocal. A little bit of delay, a little bit of reverb, nothing too fancy, but then you throw this in on it.
You know it hurt to see you go.
Gives it just a little bit more space, a little bit more. There's a True Verb stereo reverb on there, so it kind of gives it a stereo feel. And then last but not least, I have a Vox delay on here where it just kind of accentuates those last phrases that I wanted it to.
You know it hurt to see you go. And I watched you slip away. It happened so slow. Though there are things we can't explain.
So it's just enough, like I said, to give it that movement. And when you start to build onto vocals like this, I think that's what really helps the vocals to shine and to set on top of one another. And obviously on top of the mix. So when we start adding these different elements in, you start to get sort of this introspect into how it's all fitting in the pieces of the puzzles here. So let's, got some loud noise coming here in about 3, 2, and 1.
You know it hurt to see you go. And I watched you slip away. It happened so slow. Though there are things we can't explain. I know one who can heal all your pain.
Okay, so now on verse 2, or verse 1A, 1B, however you want it, I've got it verse 2. On verse 2, you're going to notice that there's a little bit more of percussive element to the guitars. So it's still the same chords, but now there's a percussive element that's added. Now, just for your guys' sake, if you're writing music, you can still use the same chords, but just change up the timbre of it. So in this instance, or timbre, timbre? I think I said that wrong. I think it's timbre. Anyway, just change it up the way that it sounds a little bit. Instead of doing broad strokes on the guitar, start doing little muted picks or something of that nature. Also, you can go full blown out and just try and, go up a step or down a step. Who knows? So anyway, there's all kinds of things that you can do with this to create interest and to add interest and make them really want to keep listening. So it looks like I missed a comment here. Tone Mangler says, on track 2, are you using a Sonotest compressor twice? One in the effects bin and another as a send. Why? Parallel compression? Yes, that is exactly why. So the Sonotest compressor that's here is for the parallel compression. and that's on the side input of the Vox delay. So on the delay, it's being compressed until the vocal stops, and then the delay comes up. So it's actually a parallel delay. So it's an easier way, instead of going at the end of each phrase and bringing up the delay. And then just to further accentuate that delay, I added this Vox delay here. So great question, by the way. And good eye. Good eye. Okay, so yet again, I'm just adding this percussive element. So we're going to go back into the song here and listen for that little bit more of that percussion timbre. I'm using the right word.
All your pain. Don't try to pretend to be strong. Truth is, we both know you're just barely holding on. Don't give up though, 'cause you still have this hope. The hands that are holding you will never let you go. You'll be better off than you've ever been if you just come back home again. The life outside of him won't satisfy. The Father's waiting at the door, just as he always has before. I pray that you will make it back in time. There's not much time.
Okay, so yet again, not a lot of huge production elements going on in the first chorus, because I'm building. So in that first chorus, what you got, instead of adding a lot of huge production elements, I added a lot of like loud strumming, open chording stuff that was just going to really, I will rewatch that later. Music is awesome. Thank you, Tone Mangler. So really though, I mean, not a lot happening, but it sounds like that it got bigger, wider, fatter, punchier. And that's just simply because of the fact that it's all, a lot of arrangement and production is all in how you play that instrument. For instance, I've had individuals come into my studio and they bring a guitar and an amp, and they say, I've got the strings that so-and-so uses. I've got the guitar that so-and-so uses. I've got the amp that so-and-so uses. Why don't I sound like so-and-so? Because you're not so-and-so, and everybody has their own fingerprint, so to speak. They strum the guitar a little differently. They pick the guitars a little differently. So yeah. And in this instance, all I was doing was just simply playing the chords a little louder, a little more open, a little more dynamic, a little less dynamic rather. And so everything just blows up and sounds bigger. It almost sounds as if there's other elements added, but there's not. And so then, just like the same trick that we talked about last time, it's not really a trick, but sort of a tip, about, in order to make things sound as if they were louder in the first place, drop things out after them. It's the same way with going into a chorus. If you drop things away and then you go into the chorus with everything again, even if it's the same elements, it's going to sound huge. Your ear has this minute to be like, whoa, everything's dropped, and then boom, hey, everything's back. So now we're going to go into verse 3. Yet again, we've dropped everything out now. So let's see what happens with the end of the chorus into verse 3.
There's not much time.
You'll notice now that the stabs in the guitar is just a little more.
Don't let this world take away everything that you believe, because you know better than anyone that Jesus is all He's all you need. You'd be better off than you've ever been if you just come.
Okay, so yet again, not much has changed, but we still feel that building. Why? The reason being is because you notice on verse 3, I completely changed the structure of how I even sang it. So in verse 1 and 2, it was sort of a staccato type lyric. And I'm probably throwing out terms, I don't even know what they mean, but basically it was more of a choppy, I know it hurt to see you go. And that was it. And then this one is more of a drawn out, don't let this world take away. So now you start to see like all of this, it's like drawing out longer. So it's same chords, same everything, but it's just a difference in the way that it's sung. So it keeps the interest yet again. and it's building to something. So here we go.
Come back home again. Life outside of him won't satisfy. The Father's waiting at the door just as he always has before. I pray that you will make it back in time.
Okay, so this is cool. Good ear, Mark. You definitely picked up on that. The drums do get more intense as the song goes. And drums are one of the main elements that I use to sort of build that tension like you're talking about. A lot of times I will get the drums sounding just like I want them on that first verse and on the chorus. And then what I'll do is I'll just automate volume to get just a hair louder till it gets to the end at the right volume that I want it to be for that crescendo. And what that does is just keeps increasing that intensity as the song goes. Very good ear, Mark. That's awesome that you picked up on that. So at the beginning of this, where I'm getting ready to do this break, there's now all of a sudden there's another element that's added. And it's this electric guitar right here. I love the sound of it too. It adds into the, I don't even know how to explain it. So this is just what it sounds like on its own. Nothing huge, nothing like, wow, that was amazing. But it's enough to give the song that extra little push. And people are going, whoa, I just heard something I haven't heard before. Their ears are being tickled, so to speak. And they're going, whoa, hey, what's going on? So here we go. We're going into, and one of my favorite parts of this song, which by the way, Micah, if you want to check out more of my music, I actually have it in the description of the video. You can go to Nimbit Music / Robert McClellan. All of my music is there that I have released, and even some of the stuff that sounds like trash. So go and check it out. At any rate, one of my favorite elements of this, I love adding shakers. Okay, that's not my favorite element, but I love adding shakers at just the right minute. And it's like one of those things that just starts to get that build going. So thank you, by the way, Tone Mangler, for the comment on the tone. That was actually recorded with an SM57 through my Johnson Marquee amp. So, and then I think there were some pedals used there too. I want to say it was the Mxr Reverb, if I remember correctly. So yeah, right before I get into this break, it's like, boom, there's a bell sound. And this bell, when I thought about putting it in there, I was like, I don't know. But then I realized, like, I keep talking about there's not much time. I was like, this is going to be perfect, because every time you hear that bell, it automatically reminds you, sort of like the church bell. And here I'm trying to like tell my parents, like, you need to come back home, or come back to church, come back to God. And here's this church bell, which is synonymous with time. It's synonymous with church. So it's like, it's a perfect fit. And whenever it hits in there, man, it just causes this. Anyway, just listen.
While there's still time.
It's just a single hit. Okay, so now that was just a single hit, but it was just enough to boom. I love it. One of my favorite parts of the song is that breakdown. And of course, and then this little area right here, I love these vocals. They just came to me. That's it. Doesn't sound good by itself, but man, you put it in there with everything else, and it's like awesome. And then the electric on this has a left and a right side. When we get into, and this is what it sounds like. Little triads, arpeggios. You add in the other guitars with it. Okay, let's go back now. Let's add in the acoustics on top of that. Add in the bass. Oh man, that's why this part really gets me. It's the fact of, it's just the fact of how it all just starts building even from that point. Like everything drops and then it starts to slow build into this boom. It's getting me excited. Sorry guys. Why am I apologizing? You guys know what this is all about. You guys get excited about it too. So on top of that, the shakers come in. I don't really necessarily have to solo these, but I want you to hear them nonetheless. And these are real shakers, by the way. This is not like something I programmed, and these are actual. And the way that I love to do this, by the way, just in case you ever want to add a shaker to your song, I always record one shaker, just holding it like this, just, and then the other shaker, I cup it. So I get a completely different sound, and it's just, and then I pan them left and right. You get this amazing, amazing shaker sound. But how do you know which ones to pan left and right? Easy. You find out which side of the stereo field is more heavily saturated with the highs, and you pan the higher shaker to the opposite side of that. There's your blend and your balance. Also, I added at the end of this, the bell again, of course. I love the bell so much. I was like, I'm going to throw that in there to end it with. And then I also added a tambourine. This is yet again adding to that build. And then the little tambourine shake to end it with. And then also at that point, we have a guitar solo that comes in. Let's listen to that solo by itself. I'm going to come back. We're going to come back to all of this here in just a second. You're going to hear it all together and get to see where it all fits in. Not anything major, but Keith, you're nuts. You're a nut. Okay. Now let's go back and listen to all that together with the bell and everything like that. He says, what mic did you use for the tambourine? Sounds good. Believe it or not, the MXL V67G again. I remember from recording this song, I already had the mic up for recording the vocals, and I literally just stuck it probably, I would say 2 feet away from the mic. You don't want to get it too close because then you get the transients just start getting crazy. But if you back it off just a little bit, you get a little bit of the room noise in there with the tambourine and just boom. I don't really stress too much on the tambourine or shaker sounds. I don't like mix them like crazy because I know they're just going to be kind of back elements that are in the back of the mix. But thank you for that. I appreciate that. All right. Now let's go back into where it all drops out, and we'll go into the actual, where all of this builds to.
While there's still time, standing there before the one who purchased us and set us free with the blood that fell from Calvary. Will we stand in silent fear of all, or to our knees in reverence fall before the Lion and the Lamb, the Son of God, the great I am? When he who sees into the heart cries, enter in or soon depart, where will we run to on that day when there's no time left to pray? Just come back home again. Life outside of him won't satisfy. The Father's waiting at the door, just as he always has before. I pray that you will make it back in time. There's
And there it is. So as you've seen on that build too, there was also a backing vocal. And this is actually kind of something I was not going to leave in it until I went back and listened afterwards. And I was like, that actually sounds pretty cool. So this backing vocal actually has a lot of processing done on it. I want you to check this out.
For the one who purchased us and set us free, the shame from Calvary, we stand in silent fear and awe, or to our knees in reverence fall before the Lion and the Lamb, the Son of God, the great I am, and He.
So it's just kind of like a harmony part, but it's got like a ton of processing done on it. And at first I was like, that is out of tune. The vocals are completely off. Everything sounds like junk. And then I'm like, put it back in with the mix. And I'm like, I think I'm going to leave it. It just adds that element of realism to it. Let's see. Someone's asking about the female vocals. So this was actually taken from Dimension Pro. It used to come with Cakewalk. When it was still Cakewalk Sonar, you got a free version of Dimension Pro, and it's a VSTi instrument, a synthesizer, and it has a lot of cool sounds. And it actually had one of the vocal patches was a female vocal, and so I used this just to kind of end off that crescendo and lead it into the next. And a lot of people, when they actually heard the song whenever I dropped it, they was like, wow, I didn't know your wife could sing. My wife was like, nope, that is not me. And then they were like, well, Robert, who is that? Who is that? I'm like, it's nobody. So anyway, so yeah, female vocal comes in there, the chorus, that solo kind of leads it off. We come back with the tambourine, and now the shakers drop out. The drums get all punchier. Just everything builds up to that final moment, and then it all drops out one last time to end with the main portion of the song, which is this here.
Oh, you know, you'd be better off.
Awesome. All right. So I hope this mix breakdown was helpful. If it was, let me know. Leave me a comment in the comment section below if you have any questions about it whatsoever after the fact of this. I'm going to go ahead and open up now for questions, though, so that if you do have questions even now, feel free to ask away. If you have questions about how I mixed anything, how I panned something, I mean, there's nothing that is off limits here. And even if it doesn't have to do with this song, ask me anything. It's one of them AMAs, ask me anything. Thank you so much, Chris. I appreciate that. The more and more that I start doing these mix breakdowns, I start to really realize something that up until this point, I've always been very transparent on my channel about everything. I've never really tried to mask myself or hide who I am. But I have noticed that in the last few weeks, I've been having this proclivity to just open up more, I think, than I ever have. And I don't know. I really feel like it's one of those things where I've had a lot of people tell me, like, if you open up completely, some individuals who love me to death and who are trying their best to help me out, especially here on the YouTube sphere. And I've had individuals who have reached out to me and said, man, I appreciate what you're doing and everything like that, but I've noticed you've been opening up a little bit more lately. And then, although there's nothing wrong with that, but if you start opening up too much, you're going to run people off. And my response to that was, I am who I am. And most of the people that are on here, they know that I provide good value, good tips, tricks, mixing tips and tricks. I mean, whatever it is, I always try to bring the value. So if they can't see past the person to see the value, or if they suddenly don't like the person because I've opened up and let people know more of who I am, then I hate to sound rude or anything. But if you're going to be like that, I mean, it's not really going to profit anybody if you're just going to be here and hating in the comments, which thankfully I've never had, at least as of yet. I know it's pretty kind of a touchy subject when people start talking about their faith. There's a lot of misinformation when it comes to religion and things of that nature, and a lot of people have honestly destroyed what true Christianity is just simply by their actions and the things of the past. And so I understand that, and I'm not here to offend anybody, but I am here to be myself. And if being myself is going to offend others and they want to leave my channel or unsubscribe because of that, I'm not going to lose any sleep over that whatsoever, knowing that I have held true to who I am. So that's my 2 cents on that. You know, if you visited this channel, I don't beat people over the head with a Bible. I don't tell you that you're all going to burn in hell if you're not living for God. I just simply, I know what I believe. I am very firm in what I believe. And I don't believe that I have to, just like everyone else has said, you know, I don't have to beat you over the head with a Bible to get you to, that wouldn't be a relationship with Jesus Christ at all. That would be a forced marriage. And I don't want to do that. So I've always tried to keep that sort of on the inside and not, you know, but as we're going over these songs, it's really showing sort of the heart of who I am. And all of my songs that we're going to be doing are going to be centered around this, because this is my life. I had no life until Christ. I was dead to this world. I was dead inside. And because he brought me back to life, I got nothing but good to say about him. So, all right, looks like I do have some questions coming in. Let's see. Tone Mangler wants me to show the processing you used on the acoustic guitars. Absolutely. Let's dive into that. I know that's one of the areas too that a lot of people have trouble is recording acoustic guitars. Totally understand it. I struggled with it for years. But hopefully I'll show you a few things here today that will help you. So the main thing is, we'll solo these out, and you'll notice that there's no effects on these whatsoever. I do have a send for saturation. The main thing is, and this applies to everything that I have tried to teach on here, this applies to everything when it comes to recording, is if you can get it right at the source and get a good recording going in, you won't have to do as much inside the DAW. By getting it right at the source, you're also going to, without having to do as much, make them sound more natural. As you can see, I went crazy on the EQ here on this guitar. Let me try to zoom into this here so you can see this. Here's the EQ plot for this guitar. So as you can see, I definitely did go a little crazy on the EQ, but you got to do what you can to make them fit. So here's the other guitar right here. This is the EQ plot for that. Basically just shaving off a bunch of low end and just boosting the highs and cutting out a lot of the mids. Nothing too major there. By painting them left and right, I do want to let you know too, big misconception, you know, record one track, duplicate it. No, don't do that. Do not do that. Record one track, go back and lay down a second track, and then paint them left and right. You will thank me later. It's a little bit more work, but if you want a better sound, you definitely need to do that. If you just duplicate the track, all you're doing is creating a larger, louder mono track, even if you paint it left and right. Now, there are ways that you can make the other track. If you have duplicated it, you can add saturation. You can add a little bit of a shifting of where it's at in the timeline by like 12 to 24 milliseconds. You can shift it in the time and make it sound stereo, but at the end of the day, it's not true stereo, and it will not translate on smaller speakers especially. It'll sound like trash. I'll just be honest. And then also I'm sending these to a saturation bus. I always use saturation. You got to have saturation in a mix. It's one of my best friends. And it's one of the main reasons too that the older mixes sound so good, because they were played through SSL consoles or API consoles that had saturation intrinsically built into the board. So a lot of times what we're hearing in those old songs that we like so much is just saturation. And so as you can see here, I don't even have it set like crazy. It's not even like, it's barely even doing anything, but just that little bit of saturation is going to help that dramatically. So if I go back and play this, I was hoping I'd put notes right here, but I didn't. The only notes I have is that it was the Alvarez guitar that I use. I was hoping that I put notes here as to what I used. I'm pretty sure that I either used the Blue Spark or yet again the MXL V67G. And the best way to get an acoustic sound that I have found is to get about 12 inches away from where the neck meets the fretboard, point it right at that, or point it just above where that portion of the wood is, like up and to the left of the sound hole. So pretty much like right where your arm sets, just like right here. But yeah, not a lot of processing done on those whatsoever. And yet again, too, those are going to be in the background for the most part. So you can do some major EQ on those and not have to worry about what it's going to sound like. Which honestly, now that I listen back to these, that's actually not that bad. Yeah. So I hope that helped you with that. Chris No says, it worked for Popeye. I am what I am. Popeye was awesome. Hey, from the UK, thoughts on webcam live recording within the DAW? Wouldn't it be fantastic for final production with film? It's driving me half crazy trying to work this out with Cakewalk and a webcam. Okay. So about that, I use OBS, the screen recording software, which I can show you on my screen right now. If I drag this over, this is what I'm seeing through OBS. And as you can see, I have different scenes set up in here. And one of these scenes allows me to switch back and forth between the webcam. So on this one here, I have my webcam enabled. Here's my live chat comment screen so that we can see that. So if you use OBS, that should completely fix your problems with wanting to use a webcam and Cakewalk. Now, the only problem that you're going to have then is trying to get Cakewalk to play well with OBS, which I had for a long time. But by switching my driver mode to MME, it fixed it immediately. So no problem there. Mark George, can we hear the acoustic guitar break soloed, please, Rob? Yeah, absolutely. So I believe you're talking about right here. Pretty straightforward. That's it. Nothing too major there. When we go on into the chorus, it gets a little bit more. And if you listen closely, you can still hear bleed from the headphones. So yeah, nothing too major going on there. It's just a really good acoustic guitar sound. That's really where you get that. So how many takes for all the guitar parts? That's a good question, honestly. And I don't know if I could even tell you, because all the take lanes are sort of. So on this one, if this is actually accurate, which I would think that it is. On the first electric guitar, I had 10 takes. And then on this one, yet again, if this is accurate, I had 5 takes. And then as you can see, like this little space right here was like maybe some overdubs. So I would say between, 5 to 10 takes per guitar part, which is not uncommon. But Minky says, do you think that this DAW, it's in the same level as example for Studio One? Absolutely. Absolutely. I might be a little bit one-sided in the sense that I've used this for over 20 years, but I think this DAW blows every other DAW out of the water, just for the simple sake of it's got 30 years backing it. It's been around since Pro Tools, and it's always been right on par with Pro Tools, if not even better than Pro Tools in some aspects. But really, it's not about which DAW you use, because all it is a tool. It's about which one that you use that works for you and fits into your workflow, and which one you get used to. I've had a lot of people that have emailed me and been like, I'm thinking of switching to this DAW or this one. And I'm like, are you making music on the one that you have? Yes. Well, then stick with the one that you have and just learn it. Because that other DAW is not going to get you any better of a sound. All it's going to do is provide a different infrastructure for you to make that sound. So, but to answer your question, I think this DAW is well on par with anything on the market, if not exceeding everything on the market. Okay, so we got a few more questions about lava lamps, which I don't have yet. I'm going to order a lava lamp. I promise you, I will order a lava lamp soon. It will be on here. Maybe for the 5,000 subscriber, we will order a lava lamp. Do you program your own drums or use MIDI files? Okay, so I'm glad that you asked that, because a lot of people have asked me that as well. Being in a small home studio, you got to do something, right? So I always, ever since I have found out a bit about Addictive Drums, I always use Addictive Drums. I just love the sound of them. They're so easy to work with. And so what I have done is, when I initially start the song out, I will use the Addictive Drums as my metronome. Instead of using a metronome with a ping, 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 ping that I can't stand, I'll just use a straight 4 on the floor drum track, something that fits the song well, and I'll lay my scratch tracks to that. And sometimes my scratch tracks turn into my, fully blown tracks that will be used in the mix. And then after I have that drum track laid down, I'm using that as my sort of my go-to. I will then go back using the same Addictive Drums. I'll go, okay, it's in this BPM. And if you use Addictive Drums, or you ever have used Addictive Drums, I'm getting tongue-tied here, then you would know that it's such a, maybe I can pull this up here. That's Addictive Keys, Addictive Drums. Oh, okay. If you ever have used Addictive Drums, though, you'll know that they are very, very intuitive. You just simply click and drag something from your MIDI drum sound into the MIDI take lane, and there you go. And you can just on the fly just begin creating those drum loops. If you go here within the kit itself, every single kit piece can be messed with, panned, processed in some different way. You can edit each and every kit piece here. You can add effects to the drums, but essentially what I would do is I would go in here and find that one drum beat that sounds well. And from there, I would just simply, slide that in there, and I would start building off of these same loops. And then once I've built off of the same loops, I just simply double click on that MIDI tab. Like, let's just say, let's just fly this one in real quick. See how simple that was? So let's say I was going to use this as my beat, but I wanted it to end a little differently. Just simply double click on that. That would bring up then this, which shows me everything that can be tweaked on these. And I can just move things on the fly and change up the drums however I want them to be. And then another huge point of this is the fact that when it's all said and done, I got it like I want, I can go back and globally adjust the velocities to make it sound a little more realistic. Now, a lot of times I don't do that. I'll just be perfectly honest. A lot of times I don't. But yeah, so hopefully that kind of answers that question. I don't ever really go too in depth on MIDI or MIDI programming of the drums or anything like that, just simply because drums are really the only thing that I really use MIDI for. I'll use it for some elements like that Dimension Pro, and you've seen I only used one. I used it more like a sample. And then sometimes I'll use it for strings or something like that. But generally speaking, I don't use MIDI a whole lot. I'm more of a real instrument kind of guy. I guess I'm just old school. I don't know. But yeah. Okay, so let's see if I missed anything else. Mark says it's all about workflow. Exactly. Ronald Young says, can you change recording speed in Cakewalk so you can record something in half speed? I don't think you can, but don't quote me on that, because there's been times where I've said I don't think you can do something, and then someone in the chat will be like, oh yeah, it's this keyboard shortcut. But to the best of my knowledge, I don't think you can do that. However, what I do think you can do is you can adjust the tempo map to change the speed of the drums maybe that you're playing to. You might even be able to import a song and adjust the tempo map to do that, but it won't record it in half speed. It'll just play it back in half speed. So I heard it was harder to play drums slow, but I know from guitar it's easier to play a little slower. In my personal perspective, it is harder to play the drums slower. I can play drums, just not well. I can play pretty much any instrument that I pick up. I just can't play them all well. The banjo, I would love to be able to play the banjo, but I can only play it well, or I can only play it somewhat. I cheated not too long ago, got a banjotar, a 6-string banjo that you tune like a guitar, and then I could play the banjo, but it didn't record very well. So, but yeah, to the best of my knowledge, it is actually very hard to play the drums slow as opposed to playing faster, because it's just trying to keep your mind in key with the timbre of it all. But at the same time, to your point, playing guitar a little slower is definitely easier. In fact, slow guitar is like slow blues. Oh my goodness, I'm a sucker for slow blues and ambient music. Love ambient music. Let me see what's Disley. By the way, welcome. This is your first time. I don't think I've seen you around here. Awesome. Could I ask if you could listen to my mix, Hide Your Love Away Beatles cover? I used Cakewalk and a webcam. When you have spare time, that is, just to see how you feel about it. Absolutely. You can send that over to, if you have a link or something like that, send it over to homestudiosimplified@gmail.com. I'll definitely give it a check out. Give it a listen. Brave man covering Beatles. They are really hot on chasing copyright. Yeah, that's true. Okay, so how did you get echoes on certain word phrases? Awesome. Good question there from Mr. George. That would be due in part to this Vox Delay aux track, where I actually sent only the delay to this track and then just cut out the portions that I didn't want, or left in the portions that I did want, cut out those that I didn't, and just literally just printed the delay. And then I'm able to bring it in and take it out whenever I need it. Also, on the lead vocals, there is a delay that's here on the VX64 vocal strip. It's not anything too major, but it's enough. And then I just automated
To see you go. And
But when you put them both together, it's pretty fire. So, I think that pretty much covers that. It's just not too much trickery or weird mixing ninja tricks. It's just subtlety, but it's the reason why you hear them so well. I will point this out. The reason why you hear them so well is because I always EQ my delays, and I always cut out anything below like 3,000 kilohertz and above 6,000 kilohertz. So you're only getting that mid-range. Whenever you hear it, it's almost like that telephone sound. But if you do it right, it's like it just kind of pokes out over everything else, but it doesn't like overly offend everything else. That makes sense. Great questions, man. You guys are rocking it. Da-da-da-da. Awesome. Okay, well, you know what we haven't done yet, guys? We have not spun the Wheel of Awesomeness. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. If this is your first time here, you're unfamiliar with what the Wheel of Awesomeness is and what it does. The Wheel of Awesomeness is just what it is. I spin the wheel. Whatever the wheel lands on is what takes place. If it's trivia, we ask a question. We ask you to answer it. There are no prizes necessarily involved in that, but we also have a tutorial video request. We have favorites where I'll ask you a favorite. And now I've added a new thing here where we have song features and a free merch item. So if we land on the free merch item, we'll have sort of a battle in the chat section, and I will randomly pick an individual who will then get access to a free merch item. So let's go ahead and spin this bad boy, and let's see what happens. Trivia. All right. So here's a bit of trivia for you I got. And this will see how well that you've been listening. I better not. I'll pull some actual trivia. How about that? Let's see here. I guess I should have been more prepared for this. It hardly ever lands on trivia until I'm not prepared. Okay, so let's check it. In 2014, music producer Dr. Luke initiated legal action against which pop singer? Okay, I don't even like that one. That's just stupid. Okay, here's a better one. Which popular singer is affectionately referred to as the boss? This one should be pretty simple. Okay, Micah, great. Do you make a plan on paper, let's say, such as minutes and texts and instruments? Sometimes I do. In fact, I even have an old PDF document that I use from time to time, which I kind of gotten away from, which is literally just a breakdown of the instruments that will be involved, what key it's in, different stuff like that. Wow, everybody answered the right answer like first time. I knew that was going to be a simple one. So great job, guys. Yes, Bruce Springsteen is the answer. Good deal. You guys are on it. Okay, so yeah, I definitely do use a lot of paper. I love paper, love notebooks, love pens and pencils. It's one of the things I guess I hoard quite a bit of. Post-it notes. Love Post-it notes. Can make jot down quick ideas and get them taken care of later. Notebooks. Boom. Got a notebook right here on the ready. So yeah. However, what I have a tendency to do here more than anything is to actually use Cakewalk's interface and use my note-taking section here, which evidently is a newer thing because, as you can see, I don't do it on the older ones. But yeah, Bruce brings teens. How old are these teens? There goes Keith again. I tell you what, this guy's off the hook. Okay, so someone also asked about the plugins that I'm using. I apologize. I had to go back and find that. So let's just real quickly, we'll go over the plugins that I'm using. On the lead vocals, we got the Sonatus compressor and the VX64 vocal strip. On the lead vocals, the second section, sort of the accentuation section, you'll see here that I'm using the TrueVerb stereo reverb, which is odd because this was about the time that I was really starting to not like Waves plugins. So the Sonatus delay on this here and the Sonatus compressor on the Vox delay that you heard. TrueVerb stereo on the Dimension Pro, which is just basically that woman's voice. Sonatus compressor on the backing vocals. That was the higher end, high-pitched backing vocals. The TH3 on this electric guitar. Now, even though this was a mic'd guitar amp, I used another guitar amp simulator on top of it, just to give it a little bit more of a different sound. Nothing wrong with that whatsoever. And I used the dark face, apparently, with a Royer on that. And a little bit of spring reverb. Yet again, another compressor. More compression on the second electric. Another TH3 here. More compression. TH3, more compression. And, oh, anything hiding in the Pro channels? That's a good question. Excuse me. Whew, that is not the Corona. I'm going to select all of these, hold down the control button, which, as you'll be able to see here, holding down the control button, and I'm going to open them all at once, and we'll see exactly what is in the Pro channels here together. So I got some tube saturation on the vocals. Got the console strip, more saturation. As you can see, I love saturation. Saturation and the max knob. I forgot I even had those knobs. That's crazy. More saturation, EQ, EQ, saturation, EQ. Can you see that I'm a fan of saturation? So as we get down into the drums, you'll see I'm using a lot of max bass. The max bass is just for that thump, the grit, and also help the drums to be heard on smaller speakers. Using an equalizer on top of an equalizer when it comes to track 29, which I believe is the, if I'm not mistaken, I believe it is the Crash. The bass guitar, we got two instances of compression. One of them is for a side chain to the kick. One of them is just for compression and max bass mono and saturation again. So that's that. For the sends, all of those sends are simply going to these buses. Reverb, delay, saturation. Super simple, right? Let me go ahead and open this up, so you guys see exactly what's going on here. Parallel compression, EQs. Not a whole lot going on here. And then for the master bus, I love the Drummer S73. If I could be a soft tube affiliate, I would probably become the soft tube Drummer S73 evangelist for them. This thing is amazing. I almost always, I shouldn't say always, but almost always will set one to Clarity 2, and then I'll insert another instance on Clarity 1 and just blend them to taste. And then as my limiter, sort of the end polished performance here, I have the T-Rex 1, and that just brings everything up to par. Now, I did a separate mastering section on this later on, in which case I would take off this limiter and then send it over to the master session. But for the sake of this tutorial and for the sake of listening to everything within the mix while recording it back in the day, I went ahead and inserted this limiter here. I think that pretty much covers all of it. As you can see, though, there's not a ton of stuff that's being done here. So what's the takeaway? The key takeaway here is, if it's recorded well, you don't have to do a whole lot of anything to the tracks themselves. So get it right at the source, and then you won't have to worry about the rest of it. Ronald Young says, I don't see any console emulation. Yes, I do use it. Apparently on this mix, I did not. I've actually started using it on every mix here lately. So do you use Pro Channel templates for your own instruments as a basis? I have at times, yes. At times. I don't always use them, but at times I do. The T-Rex are fantastic as far as I can tell so far, yes. T-Rex is one of the first and only companies that has reached out to me personally. I shouldn't say the only, but one of the first companies that's reached out to me personally and said, we like your work. Would you like to review the T-Rex 5 bundle? And I was like, yeah, but how much is it? And they were like, we'll give it to you. I was like, oh yeah, send it over. So huge shout out to T-Rex. Those guys are awesome. They seen value in a channel. At that time, I was only 800 subscribers. They didn't have to reach out to me at all, but they did. So I wish they'd be sending me their, what's that? The Spark amplifier they got now or something like that. where you can actually plug your phone in and make your phone like a pedal board. I'd love to test that thing out. That would be amazing. So yeah, I think that pretty much covers it, guys. Yet again, if you have any questions after the fact, feel free to drop them in the comments section below. And just know that the videos are going to be a little more sporadic in the coming days, at least until all this stuff is weighed out. There's a possibility, I just received word that they're letting 70 plus employees go from the place that I work. I don't know if I'll be one of those employees, but if I am, then I'll have that to contend with as well. So, but I'm going to try my best to keep coming on here and providing value in some way, shape, or form. Now we do have, like I said before, we do have the song contest coming up where we're going to come on here live. We're going to listen to all the songs together. We're going to critique the songs. And then if you were here earlier, you'll know who the judges are. We're going to all get to judge the songs, and someone will come out on top and win a free mix and master from me and a set of these headphones. That will be given to the winner of the song contest. And then from there, I don't know if any of the other guys have anything that they're giving away or not, but there are a ton of submissions, more than I've ever had before. So this is going to be really hard. I'm glad that we have a panel of individuals who can help me out on this one, because I've got so many submissions that I'm like, there's so many good submissions. It's going to be very hard. So Dizzly Diz, you have a good night too, buddy. And it has been a pleasure meeting you. Definitely be sure to subscribe if you are not already, and click that bell icon so that every time I go live, you'll be notified of that. I have been sort of slacking off about letting people know when I'm going to go live again, just simply because my schedule has not allowed me to set specific days. But I am going to, especially with the song contest, it will be a scheduled event. So you'll know when that is going on. You'll be able to mark your calendars for that. But yeah, until then, you guys, thank you so much for being awesome. Thank you for letting me pour my heart out to you today, and for sharing a song with you, and for deep diving into it. And for those of you who have stuck around even through my rant, thank you so much. I appreciate it. And if you have not and you would like to, just throwing this out there, I'm not telling you that you have to, but if you would like to support the channel, one of the best ways that you can do that is by signing up for a Patreon membership. There are several even on here right now. I know Mark George just recently signed up for $1 a month. Thank you so much, Mark. That's awesome. But by investing in that community, it's going to help me to offset the cost that it takes to, time is money for one thing, but also I would like to be able to provide more prizes in the future, like nice prizes. And the whole purpose of starting up the Patreon page was to actually get some weekly revenue or monthly revenue that would come in for prizes. I mean, it's not to pay my bills. I really wanted to use that to give back to the community that invested in me. And also on that Patreon page, you'll know that I do have a lot of personal things there as well, as far as like behind the scenes. There's all kinds of cool stuff. And I got stuff planned for the Patreon membership as well. For those of you who are already patrons, you'll know that I've got stuff in the making that is going to be super cool. I've got some live mixing tutorials that's going to come on only there. And so yeah, if you want to know more about that, I just posted a link in the chat to where you can go and check that out. Yet again, no pressure. I know that times are tough right now, but it would be a huge blessing if you could go and sign up for any amount, $1 a month, all the way up to $100 a month, which I don't expect anybody to do. But thank you so much to my current patrons. And also, if maybe you don't feel comfortable with Patreon, that's fine. You can go to my website. I have a support tab there, which gives you a ton of different ways that you can support through there. Hey, Jason, it's good seeing you, buddy. So if you go to that, you can do a one-time donation through PayPal. You can do a monthly donation through PayPal. There's all kinds of different ways to help support if you want to do that. Yet again, not twisting any arms. Just if you find value in what I'm doing here and you want to help the channel and give back in some way, shape, or form, I would greatly appreciate it. And so would all of the individuals who get on here and who win prizes and stuff like that. So until next time, guys, you all have a blessed day. It has been awesome spending my afternoon with you. And we're definitely going to reconvene here soon for picking the winner and doing the mixed critiques of the song contest. So until then, you guys just keep on being you, because you all are awesome, awesome individuals. I love each and every one of you. So I'll talk to you all later. You all have a great afternoon, or wherever you're at in the world. Great night, a great day. See ya.